doing autism and communication, strategies for facilitating social interactions with peers. And our trainer today is Heather Page Alger. And I want to just do some housekeeping tips. If you can make sure you remain on mute, we would greatly appreciate that. If you do have questions for Heather, if you can put them in the chat, and we will try to get to those at the very end of the training. And if we run out of time, you will be able to email Heather with additional questions. We are recording today's training, and it will eventually be uploaded to the KATC's YouTube channel for viewing in the future. There will also be a link to the resource folder for today. I did email that out ahead of time, but I also put it in the chat at the very beginning. That will have the PowerPoint for today and other resources. If you did come to any of our previous trainings and have not gotten your certificate yet, Michelle Bush did put her email address from KATC, and you can email her and she will problem solve that with you and get that sent. You can also email me if needed, and I can connect you with Michelle. I will be putting a survey link for this training at the end, probably around 11:45, 11:50 for completion. If you can ensure to have that completed today, that would be great, but at the latest by Friday, because Michelle does like to get those sent out by the very early of next week. We have one more training in this series next week that's going to be more focused on school resources and support. So we hope you can join us for that. And that is it. And I am going to pass it over to our trainer today, Heather.
Okay, good morning, or actually, good afternoon. Welcome to the Communication, Social Interactions, and Autism-focused training provided by the Kentucky Autism Training Center. I'm Heather Page Alger, and I'm a speech language pathologist. I'm certified by the American Speech Language Hearing Association, known as ASHA, and I'm a field training coordinator for the Kentucky Autism Training Center. So welcome. The title of this presentation, Autism and Communication, Strategies for Facilitating Social Interactions, will target these areas: understanding communication and social communication challenges for children and adults with autism, and identifying strategies to support and facilitate communication and social communication with siblings, family members, peers, teachers, therapy providers, and/or community members. The overall goal of this presentation is to provide intervention strategies for families and individuals like yourself working with people with autism. The mission of the Kentucky Autism Training Center is to strengthen our systems of support for autistics by bridging the research to practice gap and providing training and resources for families and professionals. And we're committed to improving the quality of life for autistics in the Commonwealth. Just a little note about our staff. We're a staff of 8, and we're serving all of Kentucky. So this is a huge task that we enjoy greatly, and we appreciate the support. The participants will access today's presentation using the QR code, and there's additional resources for families and professionals available within the QR code. Okay, and just a note before we proceed further with the presentation, please note that persons with autism may be referred to in this presentation using person-first language, such as a child with autism, or identity-first language, such as autistic child, to accommodate differences in individual preferences. Let's begin. Consider this quote by Temple Grandin. She is an individual with autism who is well known throughout the world for her insight into the life of an autistic person. Temple Grandin states, "In an ideal world, the scientists should find a method to prevent the most severe forms of autism, but allow the milder forms to survive. After all, the really social people did not invent the first stone spear. It was probably invented by an Aspie who chipped away at rocks while the other people socialized around the campfire. Without autism traits, we might still be living in caves. So, this is the quote by Temple Grandin in her book, Thinking in Pictures, Expanded Edition, My Life with Autism. How do you interpret her message? One may interpret this message to mean that she believes that persons with autism may not socialize in the same manner as others without autism, and that lack of socialization allows for autistic people to create and accomplish tasks. She shines the light on the socialization differences exhibited by autistic people. Now let's continue with the presentation. Communication and social interactions. Social interactions include communicating a message to one or more persons by way of speaking and or nonverbal communication, such as exhibiting facial expressions, gesturing, using body language or hand signals. We can be the sender of the communication message within a social interaction or the recipient within a social communication interaction. We read or interpret the message from the communication partner, and the communication partner is doing the same with our message. Now, think about how our lives would be different if social interactions rarely occurred within our lives. Consider how social interaction could cause anxiety and avoidance of social interactions if we did not understand how to approach a social interaction, engage in a social interaction, or join in an existing social interaction. Consider if we lacked the necessary language skills to participate in social interactions. These are the social interaction challenges faced by autistic people daily. Let's set the stage in the presentation by delving into the diagnostic criteria for autism so that we can better understand the criteria specifically that might impact communication and social interactions. So, what criteria are considered for a person to receive the diagnosis of autism? As defined by the American Psychiatric Association Desk Reference Manual, known as the DSM-5, what characteristics of autism impact communication and specifically social interactions? Keep in mind that criteria as we progress through the presentation, since this will help to guide you when we're thinking about the challenges for autistic persons and ways to facilitate interactions, specifically within the social communication area. Social communication and communicative interactions can be and should be strategically targeted when helping the autistic person to interact in social engagement situations and settings. As defined in the DSM-5, ASD is a neurological disorder, and that means that the disorder affects the brain. There are three deficit social communication and social interaction characteristics associated with autism. First, the social interactions with others are deficient. We may notice that the conversational turn taking or the natural back and forth flow to a conversation is affected. Second, as I've highlighted, the nonverbal communication is impacted. That's lack of eye contact and deficits in understanding and the use of gestures, along with facial expression and nonverbal verbal communication is seen. Third, deficits in developing, maintaining, and understanding relationships are exhibited as difficulties, such as difficulties with play behavior. That would be seen with imaginative play, making friends. You can also see an absence of an interest in peers. Other parts of the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria include restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior. So, what do these restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior mean or look like? How would those impact our daily routines and social language? So, persons with autism may exhibit the insistence of going through the same fast food drive through every day, um, insistence on uh, or refusal to sit in a different area within a classroom or a therapist office, um, insistence of sitting in the same seat. We also may see that a certain object is always within the autistic person's hands. A repetitive motion may be seen, such as pacing back and forth. Uh, a huge challenge would be inability to adapt to change in a routine, such as when a therapy appointment is rescheduled, or maybe a change in the routine is noticed from that it is evidence that morning before the therapy visit that may cause anxiety and distress. Types of situations, in certain types of situations, persons with autism lack the social language skills to express their feelings. So keep in mind these restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior as we progress through the presentation, since this information wraps back to this DSM-5 diagnostic criteria, especially highlighting the social challenges. Restricted and repetitive patterns may mean in the social realm that persons with autism only talk to certain people or peers. And this is obviously going to limit the social interaction circles. The preference for sameness may include that the person with autism uses the same phrases to address certain people, and sometimes those are used as a conversation starter as well. So these are more of the social interaction areas of deficit that we should consider when we're intervening, modeling, and facilitating social communication interactions for persons with autism. Other parts of the DSM-5 for autism include the highly restricted or fixated interests, such as the narrowed topic focus. Sometimes a narrowed topic focus will include trains, planets, race cars. Um, Individuals with autism may have a vast knowledge of these topics, but they misunderstand the other topics that arise during a social conversation, such as simply chatting with another person about their day, asking questions to get to know that individual, even introducing themselves can be a challenge. Certainly, asking a friend to visit or to play a game with them is a challenge. Autistic children have difficulty with ending a conversation in an expected manner. They may just walk away from the conversation to end it. The person with autism may have difficulty in the manner that the conversation evolves to include their communication partner's interest or the subjects that the autistic person's partner wants to talk about. They may miss the cues that the conversation is evolving with that back and forth flow. Sometimes the autistic person will abruptly change the previous topic back to their individual focus or that high interest area. Other parts of the DSM-5 criteria include the hyper or hypo reactivity to sensory input or the unusual aspects of the environment, which may include, that the person with autism may find that when a communication partner comes within their area, maybe a perfume or cologne might cause a hyperreactivity. That's an example that would impact a social interaction. So let's continue. The additional criteria also include clinically significant impairments in the area of the social area that I've been mentioning, and the symptoms are not better explained by intellectual disability or global delay. So overall, as you see in the top boxes within this picture, overall, there's many areas of a person's life that are impacted by autism, but especially communication and socialization that we are focusing on today. Let's look at a part of social communication and interactions specifically known as pragmatics. So pragmatics are described by speechandhealth.com as the social language use. Pragmatics involves using language for different reasons, like a greeting, and how that's a very different type of communication function as compared to asking for something. A part of pragmatics that can be very impacted and observed in persons with autism is the person's ability to adjust the kind of language used based upon who is listening, such as how a person engages in conversation with one's teacher or therapist is very different to how someone engages in conversation with a friend or family member, and how to adjust the vocabulary, the facial expressions, and the body language. Just how close do you stand to that listener? The ability to adjust the communication content, such as the telling of jokes or calling the speaker by a nickname. For example, this can be a challenge. People with autism may have difficulty with knowing when a joke is appropriate and when that joke can be said. Pragmatics also includes the conversational rules. That's including the taking of turns within a conversation and specifically staying on topic. These can be big challenges for persons with autism. These are characteristics for social communication exhibited by autistic persons that can limit the autistic person's ability to engage and sustain conversations. The person with autism may lack the ability to start a conversation or respond to a question or make a comment from the communication partner. The autistic person may provide too little or too much information that is appropriate for the situation. And I'll give an example. When the person with autism is asked by a new acquaintance or a peer, "What's your name?" The person with autism may vocalize a mini speech and give too many details about their birth, the origin of their name, their preferences for a nickname, and why that nickname was chosen instead of, in that particular example, simply stating their name or their preferred nickname. The person with autism may seem to focus upon interaction or interacting with objects. So the preoccupation with objects per se instead of interacting with people. The autistic person may focus on a particular feature of the communication partner's face, such as the communication partner's wearing of glasses or hairstyle, rather than making the expected eye contact. The person with autism may say something shockingly frank to a peer, such as, "Your haircut is ugly." And this is just as an example. Instead of using social pragmatic types of comments, such as, "Oh, you have a new haircut," without embedding their honest opinion. So they can be bluntly honest during a conversational exchange. It's knowing and judging when and how to make these comments to others that is deficient, which can cause barriers in home conversations, in the school setting or peer settings, or within those therapy interactions. Pragmatic difficulties may be observed and noted during those home visits and those clinical setting visits. Persons with autism may also be observed to prefer to be alone or to play alone. And certainly this makes making friends a challenge. These are barriers to social interactions and social language. Pragmatics, we've already touched upon the unusual attachment to objects, the preference for routines or rituals, the perseverative behaviors. Moving on down to trouble letting go of ideas. That may surface in a conversational exchange. The focused on one idea, we previously touched upon that. And difficulties understanding the concept of finish. That may certainly impact the social interaction. When caregivers or mental health professionals have concerns about social language and pragmatics, then a speech language pathologist should be consulted. Speech language pathologists have extensive knowledge about communication skills, and the child's doctor or medical professional may suggest a referral to a speech language pathologist. So make sure you look for a speech language pathologist that is certified by the American Speech Language Hearing Association, known as ASHA, and speech language pathologists and their names and contacts are noted within ASHA's online database. So how do family members, teachers, peers, or therapists assist in the autistic person's social communication development? What strategies can be utilized? What strategies would be appropriate to include in the intervention practices at home or within a therapy setting that may improve carryover of skills to other settings? Using interventions, incorporating the evidence-based practices. Why are the evidence-based practices important when working on communication skills, specifically social interactions? The National Clearinghouse on Autism Evidence and Practice has identified these 28 research-based practices that you see on the screen that have demonstrated the best current methods for assessment and intervention for autism. The strategies have been researched and reported as gains for persons with autism. So we will discuss some specific strategies, review those, and explain those in a condensed manner to spark intervention ideas for you as professionals and the families that you serve. You may want to review the resources at the end of the presentation for more in-depth information about the evidence-based practices, and remember that the entire presentation is available in the resources folder. Also, the highlighted practices will be explained with some videos to view so that you can better understand the 4 practices that will build social interaction skills for persons with autism. First, modeling is included. That is a practice that helps in making sure that the person from autism is learning from watching another person perform the activity or skill correctly, such as conversational turn taking. Prompting and reinforcement are also highlighted on this list, and those are practices that are needed to learn a new skill and practice the skill and then carry that skill over. Prompting is assisting the learner in some way to demonstrate the skill, such as providing that verbal reminder to perform the skill. Reinforcement is also highlighted. This occurs when we reward the behavior that we were hoping to observe. And reinforcement is different than punishment when the behavior that we hope to change is occurring or observed. We know that in working with people with autism that they're very highly motivated by reinforcement. Also note that visual supports is another evidence-based practice that's highlighted, and it's an important piece of any intervention strategy for a person with autism. Autistic children and adults respond very well to visual input. Visual supports as part of any intervention support, these cannot be overlooked or neglected. So let's examine these practices and let's look closer at how these practices should be part of a social skills interaction intervention program. When learning new information or building upon the previously learned information, it's important to realize and understand that the evidence-based practices are connected and that several practices may be needed and needed to be implemented in order to encourage the development of new skills. So let's examine the evidence-based practice of modeling. What is modeling? Sam and the Affirm team tell us that modeling occurs when someone correctly performs the target behavior for the learner. The learner observes the modeling of the target skills before being asked to demonstrate the skill. Therefore, this presentation's focus upon social communication and interactions would include and involve that a parent or professional, for example, would correctly demonstrate a social communication learner target, exactly what the name modeling indicates. We will view a video next that will show the child exhibiting the prerequisites of modeling. Those include imitating the actions of another, performing some of the skill being targeted, and sustaining attention long enough to watch the skill being modeled. Let's take a look.
Heather, it's Andrea. Is the video playing on your end? Because it's not on ours.
Yes, it is. Hold on for just one moment.
Okay.
Can you see it coming up now?
I can see the video, but I don't hear it.
You don't hear it. Okay, let's try this. Can you
We
hear it
were
now?
blessed with him, and he is on the autism spectrum. I'm Renee Dunn. Marcus, look, I'm Marcus's grandmother. Look, car. You have a car? He likes playing by himself, and whenever you would sit down with him, he would kind of move away. It's not the game. And he is getting very, very frustrated not being able to communicate. Yes, Marcus.
His grandmother watches him while his parents work. When I first started working with Marcus, he was not talking, not saying any words. He had lots of babbling. He wasn't very interested in playing with others. I'm Jenny Sharpless. I'm a speech language pathologist here at the Kennedy Krieger Center for Autism and Related Disorders. The number one strategy we're going to work on today is just tuning in to what he's interested in and imitating him. So show me how you normally play at home.
Okay, well, the first thing we would
Heather, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but most of us are hearing it, but we can't see it.
And I get
Okay.
something.
Hold on one moment.
There you go. Very good, Marcus. Very good.
Great. So he was really good at that puzzle.
Yes.
But the one thing that I noticed is that he's playing and you're watching.
Yes.
I want you to be able to be as play partner. So what was he doing with this puzzle?
He was picking up each piece and putting it in.
Yeah. So then you will take your turn and
So
do
let
what?
him do one and then I'll
Yeah.
do.
Yes.
I'm sorry, the video's still not playing.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna put one in. Two.
Okay, can you still hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Heather.
Okay. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Okay, so the video is embedded in the resources. There's a link to that, so you can view that. I'll give a synopsis of the video. It's a speech language pathologist that is working with a grandmother and her grandson, and she demonstrates how to improve social communication skills, how to interact with that child in a manner that will improve his social interactions with her. Also, there's language, lots of language embedded, and demonstrating how to make sure that when she's sitting with him, that and they're working on the floor, that when she's sitting with him, that she turns her body or angles her body so that she is facing him. At the start of the video, before the speech language as the speech language pathologist is starting to work with her, she has the child sitting next to her. The more ideal situation would be that the child is in front of her yet close, and he begins to model and demonstrate playing with a train in the way that she does. And then as she's able to get this excitement from her grandchild, you can see the momentum with the language and the social interaction build, in that he starts saying, you know, go train, go car. They start building on vocabulary, and he starts looking at her. So it's quite a powerful video. Now let's go back to the presentation. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it's still on the slide of the video.
Okay. Okay. Hold on one moment.
Mhm.
The other videos are embedded, so those should move. Okay. So as I was describing in the video, and I do apologize for those technical difficulties, in the modeling video example, the caregiver coached regarding the modeling of the skills. The focus of the video was imitating. And in the video, the modeling prerequisites of imitating the action, performing some of the action, and showing the attention needed of the skill were observed. Well, there's turn taking, eye contact, imitation, lots of spoken language is noted in that model within the video. So I do encourage you to take a look at that video. It's about a 6-minute video.
Heather, I'm
yes,
sorry to interrupt. Are you
yes.
sharing your screen?
Let me, hold on one moment. Can you see my screen now?
I can see where you're wanting to share, and it's just, there it comes. Yep,
Got it? Perfect.
you're good. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Okay, moving on with modeling. With modeling, targeting social communication involves patience and wait time. So it's very important to always provide a short pause for the child to demonstrate the social communication skill following your model. Praise the child when the skill is demonstrated correctly, and keep in mind that it is dependent upon the child's language of level, understanding, and usage. Expanding the child's vocalizations attempts, such as when the child says car, expand that utterance by saying, I see a car. So these are modeling tips to implement during a therapy situation. Prompting is another evidence-based practice. So what is prompting? Prompting means providing the same assistance, some assistance to help the learner in using a specific skill or behavior. Types of prompting include a gestural prompt, verbal prompt, visual prompt, and a model prompt. Let's say, for instance, that the social language target is for the autistic child to respond when asked the child's first name. The verbal prompt may include saying to the child, say, and then wait to observe whether or not the child says the name or the caregiver. You may even whisper the child's name as a verbal prompt or say the first part of the name as a verbal prompt. This could be followed by a subtle gesture in signaling that the child should respond, such as just sort of showing of your hand. Then additional prompts, such as a modeled prompt, could occur. The practitioner actually models saying the name after saying the question. A visual prompt, for instance, may be a card with the child's printed name on it that the practitioner would show to provide that visual cue. And when practicing the skill, it's important to allow wait time so that the child may respond. Tips on prompting: allow the learner to perform the social interaction target independently without that assistance first. Provide guidance or model the target if the target is not performed correctly. Another type of evidence-based practice is reinforcement. So what is reinforcement? It's a response to someone's behavior that is intended to make that person more likely to behave that way again. Positive reinforcement is a process which strengthens the type of behavior that is applied to. It is a consequence which allows the occurrence of the behavior, similar to your displayed actions, in that similar when you display actions, those could be followed by a smile from your friend. The consequence can increase the likelihood of you eliciting a similar response in the future under the same circumstances. Explained more simply, positive reinforcement means you do something and then you immediately get something you like, and you will be likely to engage in that similar behavior again and in the future under a similar context, and that is for the desired behavior to occur and be reinforced. Okay, let's watch a video of a parent and a professional working together to demonstrate modeling and reinforcement. And let's notice how the practitioner engages and coaches the parent to practice modeling before asking the parent to demonstrate modeling and reinforcement with her child.
I can see, but I can't hear it, Heather.
Same.
Cheer and high five or whatever you think is the right fit for whatever he's doing, or whatever he's preferring that any given day. I guess you can use some ice cream too, right? That's true. Okay, well, cool. Do you want to try it? Yeah. So I'm just gonna bottle for you. There you go. You got it. Perfect. A little animation. Yeah.
Did you notice that the practitioner had the parent practice modeling and reinforcement following her demonstration?
The practitioner provided feedback that the practices were being used correctly.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Heather.
Wonderful. Okay, so in reinforcement, some activities and ideas include drawing. These are activities that can be very motivating and can be calming within the therapy setting. Providing favorite games or activities, puzzles, sensory activities such as a shaker item or a squishy ball, rocking in a chair, water play, stickers for those younger children. Obviously, for an older person with autism or a older teen, talking with a favorite peer can be very motivating. And what's important is to have these reinforcers nearby. So when the child performs the new skill, the reinforcement needs to be delivered immediately. Some tips on reinforcement include these to increase the social communication skills. The reinforcers are used to increase social communication and should be made if available. Autistic persons will likely perform the activity if they know the reinforcer will follow. Just like our preferences for desired objects or activities change over time, this happens too with reinforcers. So please note that the reinforcer may need to be changed as the child's preferences change. Reinforce each time the skill is performed, and make sure the reinforcer is not available for the person with autism until the skill is used. And the reinforcer as the child demonstrates social skill interactions independently. Autistic persons will likely perform the activity, as I had mentioned previously, if they know that a reinforcer will follow. So these are the reinforcement tips.
Okay. Let's watch a video of a child and a parent and the professional that captures all three of the evidence-based practices of modeling, prompting, and reinforcement.
In the following clip, the mom is working with her son to clean up balls. Notice how the practitioner provides support and feedback to the mom when the practice does not initially work.
You ready to clean? You ready to clean? No. Yeah, put the balls in. Put them in. Yeah. Great. No, put them in. Why don't you try putting one in? Look. There he goes. He didn't quite follow us that time. Let's try it again. Xander, it's time to clean up. Time to clean. Look. Watch mommy. Look. Ball in here. No. Yeah,
That's a ball. You're
right. Right. Put the ball in here. Look. Watch mommy. Good. What if we move it a little bit further away from you? And then maybe try to throw it in. Can you throw in? Xander, look. Or at in. Xander, look. Yes. Yay! Does he like tickles? Could you help him maybe just do hand over hand prompting? Xander, come here. And then give him some tickles. Xander, try to get the basketball. Get the basketball. Yeah. Here you go. Oh, crash goes the car. Here. The ball in. Put it in there. Yay! Tickle, tickle, tickle. That looks fun. Good job. Put the ball in. Yay!
Did you notice that the strategy was not successful the first time? The practitioner continued to provide support and suggestions on using the practice until the child successfully cleaned up the balls.
Okay, so where do we start with interactions, building social interactions, and using the evidence-based
practice to make progress in social language? Here's some ideas. The communication social language skills targeted for social interaction intervention could include greetings, responding to one's name. This may be an earlier observed deficit. The person with autism may need to be directly taught to respond to their name. Also, the autistic child may need instruction in calling a person or friend by the given name. The initial interactions and the responses are important to opening the door to further communication interactions with siblings, peers, and community members. Maintaining conversation is an area of social language that may need specific teaching as well. Making appropriate comments within the communication exchange, taking turns during conversation, and the ability to recognize when the communication partner is not interested in the topic are often areas to target. Now let's dive into some specific strategies to assist in the families and professionals in facilitating social interactions. Singing or incorporating music into play can help the person with autism to participate in social settings where songs or music are involved. Music is enjoyed by folks of all ages. Incorporating singing or music into the social interaction is a frequent activity observed in preschool through high school social situations. Think about dances. Playing card games such as Old Maid, for example, for possibly younger children, or using Uno for middle schoolers through adult age persons that may enjoy that game. Card games, board games can target the initiating the social interaction in which the person with autism would ask a peer, sibling, family member, or professional to play the game. Responding to a request by a communication partner when asked to dance to music as a fun activity would provide practice for the autistic person's responses to others. And turn taking is naturally embedded into card games, board games. So practice in turn taking during a conversation, those skills are practiced too. For younger persons with autism, reciting nursery rhymes together, not only does it build the language opportunities and the language abilities, it encourages conversational exchanges with siblings or maybe a favorite cousin. This can be done in your therapy situations as well. You can also work on it helps for the child to engage in modeling of making eye contact, uh, modeling and prompting, asking or requesting a favorite nursery rhyme, or even drawing that picture together following the nursery rhyme. Professionals can utilize and recommend these methods to family members during home visits or office therapy visits to build the child's experiences in engaging in social interactions. You might say, imitate what your child is doing, follow the child's lead, play back and forth with sounds and objects. You might suggest, and this is very, very important, allow the child to make choices. Use preferred items and interest in play. You might also suggest expand on what the child is already doing and join in. Blowing bubbles, that's another example of a low-cost activity that young kids enjoy playing together. The child with autism could request this play activity with a caregiver, a sibling, or professional such as yourself. Rocking in a chair could be another request for a favorite activity that could initiate a conversation. Children like to create shapes and characters using Play-Doh. That's another activity. And also it provides those opportunities to ask another peer or someone else to play within working with the Play-Doh, maybe during the therapy session. Other sensory activities and ideas that you may incorporate into your professional practice may be allowing the person with autism to play with those fidget toys. This is an idea that is of great benefit. Providing a box of sensory items that may spark conversation within your professional setting between you and the person that you're working with. Drawing, and of course, we've talked about the drawing and the finger painting. Those are examples. Sharing an interactive book time is always a good choice of an activity that can be implemented that provides multiple opportunities for social interactions in addition to providing language building opportunities to build social interaction. The child with autism could first gain the attention of the communication partner by calling the partner by name and asking to read the book, or simply gesturing by picking up the book and handing it to you as the professional. Then the communication partner can describe the pictures. You can ask questions. You can model the ending of the book and say, that the book is finished. And then next time, the child with autism can be asked about requesting another book or possibly another activity that can occur within the office setting. For older children with autism or young adults, then building social interactions practice into settings that teens would typically enjoy, such as group type of activities, could provide opportunities to provide practice with social language skills and given appropriate support. That's important to note. Community types of activities such as clubs, religious group activities, sporting events, Special Olympics, and activities involving the arts hosted by communities are examples of those group type of interactions. Family members and pictures of family members, those are another great motivator for practicing social language. You might incorporate that into your professional practice. Family members and pictures of family members are a great motivator, and they're a natural reinforcer. The child could request to talk to the family member or even use FaceTime along with the caregiver's help or your help to reward and reinforce the child's communication practice. The family member that is requested could possibly play a fun game in person with the child or join in the activity. These are all extremely motivating activities that you may incorporate. Here's some tips for professionals and the families you work with. Medical professionals should be consulted. Families need to be advised to consult with their child's physician and teachers regarding their child's language development and the possible referral for a speech language therapy evaluation or services. Professionals should inquire about whether or not a child with autism is receiving speech language therapy services. Medical professionals should ask families about the current status or methods of support that the caregivers are successfully using at home. And then both the families and professionals could utilize the same or a similar low-tech communication tool or support during interactions or therapy office visits to further facilitate that communication practice. And professionals can prepare their office or their therapy setting before an autistic individual visits with possible reinforcing or motivating items. And that's based upon the prior consultation with the family. Consider that when families and professionals show interest in the same things that interest the person with autism, then the person with autism will be more open to communicating and seeking or responding to communication attempts. The resources page of this presentation will house the copy of these resources. Remember to access those. And so I think we're nearing the end. We are nearing the end of the presentation. Here are the resources, and I highly recommend that you take a look at those for further information about evidence-based practices in autism. We have a couple minutes left over. If there are questions from any of the audience, I would be happy to address those questions, or you may put those in the chat or email me, heather.alger@louisville.edu.
Thank you for viewing this webinar. Please take a moment to complete this electronic evaluation. You can either scan the QR code or type the link into your web browser.